separate issues on buybacks and wealth taxes, but there's clearly a common thread. Where do you see this debate going?
Well, I think it's been striking how well received by the public, including Republicans and independents polled, how popular the Elizabeth Warren wealth tax is. And I think it's for three reasons. One, you really do have extreme wealth inequality in our country right now. The top 1% is back to having 42% of the wealth. That's more than we saw in 1915, 1917, in the period of the most excessive wealth concentration. Secondly, this only hits 75,000 people who have net worth over 50 million. That still allows a lot of people not to be impacted. And third, I think typical homeowners know, hey, I get hit with a wealth tax, a property tax every year. I do okay. Why is it unfair that those who have vast more resources and assets are able to have untaxed wealth that they often pass on to their heirs, while here middle-income families, working families, are paying both income taxes, payroll taxes, and a wealth tax in a form of a property tax on their home?
Jimmy, a wealth tax we've debated before with you can be very hard to implement, but could a sort of revamped estate tax mixed in with some other factors be the way forward?
Listen, I think if there's anything we've learned here over the past month is that Democrats have boundless imagination when it comes to figuring out taxes. So I'm sure we could come up with some sort of tax, but the point is, what is the purpose of the tax? Is it punitive? Is it to reduce wealth inequality? As Gene well knows, that wealth inequality peak in 1917 was also followed by a tremendous productivity boom in the 1920s. People often forget about that. So if the point here is to then use that money to pay for stuff, to pay for a job guarantee, to pay for Medicare for all. I agree with Jason Furman and Larry Summers. If that's what you're going to do, then everyone's going to have to pay more, and that would be through some sort of value-added tax, which Democrats aren't talking about. They're actually like, you can get all those programs paid for just through wealth taxes and raising the tax rate, which I think to a harmful 70% rate.
Gene, what do you make of the way that this debate has, for some reason, settled on the issue of stock buybacks? I mean, you kind of delineated a lot of the vectors where we have this inequality built up, right? You have lightly taxed capital gains, deferring them in perpetuity, no estate tax in most cases. That's one issue. Why stock buybacks in particular getting all this attention?
Well, look, I think for a lot of us, we are in pretty big I told you so views. Look, I heard people say, oh, my gosh, if we could just bring back money, if we just had a lower rate, we would invest, we would create jobs. And we would always say to people, hold it. You have huge amounts of cash on the sidelines. You have the lowest financing costs. If you have profitable investments, you could afford to do it. So when people see that money coming back and everything they heard not being the case, and it just going to stock buybacks, which, benefit have an excessively disproportionate impact on the most well-off. I think if corporate America had responded with a flurry of job hiring and investment, that would have been the show that they wanted. They've actually proved the opposition's case to this recent tax reform.
Which brings me, Jimmy, to Senator Marco Rubio. I mean, he's a Republican. Is there any sign that there's any momentum within his own caucus to go after buybacks and tax them differently?
Well, given that this was a free trade party not so long ago, and now it isn't, I hesitate to declare any idea, with no momentum. I think Republicans have a problem. I think they promised that this tax cut was going to boost investment, and it isn't. So they need a scapegoat. And Rubio is choosing stock buybacks. I think two other obvious scapegoats would be the president's trade war and this tax cut being financed by deficits. I think those are also possible stories. But that, of course, goes to the very structure of the tax cut and the very nature of the Trump administration. So we need another person to blame, something else to blame. And Rubio is blaming stock buybacks, though I think his plan doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know why he wants more in dividends rather than stock buybacks, why he wants to raise capital gains taxes, raising the cost of capital. None of it makes very much sense. But when you're looking for something else to blame, you grab what you can.
Let's just
Jimmy,
remember. Let's just remember what our goal is when we do economic policy. It's not about earnings per share. It's not about any particular metric. It is about, are you creating growth and wealth and prosperity that benefits the opportunity and happiness and dignity of typical American people. So when somebody says this is not working for everybody, they're not taking some wild or radical position. They're asking what every American should ask, which is, are these economic policies benefiting the public as a whole, the American people? And it's a very hard case to make that this excessive buyback after this tax cut to 21% that was not even asked for by the corporate community is really benefiting the typical American family and worker across our country.
Buybacks aren't hurting investment. Buybacks aren't hurting investment. Come on.
But Gene, would a better way to tackle this issue, which has seen share prices rise a lot more in the last decade following QE than, say, economic growth has, to get to the root of the problem and increase capital gains tax?
Well, I think you can look across the board, but it's interesting that there would be such a negative reaction to a wealth tax that hits 0.1%. I do believe capital gains can and should be higher. I think, not to go overly wonky, it doesn't end up getting scored as having the type of revenue impact it would. And look, I do agree that part of the reason that you're for a wealth tax...
Do you think Jeff Bezos is taking from the American people? Do you think Amazon is not generating more consumer surplus and more spillover growth than what's going to be gained by your tax? I mean, come on.
No, the come on is back to you. Nobody is saying that we shouldn't have a free enterprise system, that we shouldn't have capitalism. But to say that if you were worth $100 billion, that you could give a little bit back when there are people who are going out with decent retirements, people we're having despairs of death by people who are giving up on their lives after being dislocated. I'm sorry, I don't believe caring about the general equity.
Google? That's being caused by Google.
Did I say that?
And Amazon?
Did I say that? I didn't say that. You're just putting words in my mouth. I said we could have.
You're trying to make a connection between two things: the fact that we have this tremendous entrepreneurial system, which has made some people fabulously wealthy by providing goods and services that people really value, to like the opioid epidemic. That's the connection you're creating.
No, I'm saying that as a matter of public policy, we do not organize policy to make sure that we are taking care of all our people. So to ask some of our most well-off,
we need more billionaire entrepreneurs.
Hold it, people, yes. Fine, we should have more billionaires. But if you get to, but James, if you get to be a billionaire, you can pay a couple % more to make sure that the rest of the American people have a dignified economic life.
Warren Advisor wants more billionaires.
Yes, but I do believe you can have a progressive taxation that allows to help more people have health care, have paid family leave, to have training when they lose a job, to be able to send their kid to school. That is about making our system, our capitalism and free enterprise system, actually fulfill its duty and destiny to embetter all of the American people. That's a belief in our system.
Gene, just to clarify, are you advising Senator Elizabeth Warren?
I am not working for any particular...
On the wealth tax, right?
I'm not working for any particular candidate. Her team did call me, and I did advise them, and I did favor her doing that, and I'm proud of that.